We're continuing the trend with some crazy high stakes poker in Las Vegas. Today we're at the Aria playing 25, 50, 100 and getting into some of the biggest pots of my life. We get into two $30,000 all-in pots tonight and plenty of other massive pots as well. Getting right into the first hand, we look down at my favorite hand, pocket sevens, and Chino Ream is in the $100 straddle. I'm gonna get $400 to go a standard 4x open. I expect people to be calling their straddles and blinds pretty liberally here, so I decided to go 400 instead of the normal 300. Bruno in the small blind comes in for a 3-bet and decides to make it $1,400. Chino ends up folding and the action's back over to me. I obviously defend with my favorite hand. It's just not a hand I'm ever going to be folding to a 3-bet, so I put in the call and we flop ourselves second pair on a 9-4 deuce rainbow board. Bruno bets out here very small. I'd expect him to do that on this very dry board. $800 is the price for me to call, which I do with my second pair. I'm still beating all of his ace, king, and queen high type of hands. So when I put in the call and the turn comes the 3 of diamonds, really shouldn't change too much unless he has a hand like 5-6 suited, or of course ace 5 suited makes a lot of sense. When he checks, the action's on me, and I decide to take some of my showdown value here and not bloat the size of the pot. I decide to check behind here and see what he does on the worst river card, the queen of diamonds. Now all of his diamond flush draws are complete. He has a flush. Additionally, hands like queen jack, king queen, and ace queen all have me beat. So when he bets out large here into the $4,600 pot, I'm put into a tough spot. There's $8,100 now in the middle after his $3,500 bet. I have a bluff catcher with the 7 of diamonds. Is very important to note because I do block some flushes like 7-8 suited, 7-6 suited, stuff like that. But ultimately I decide that Bruno is not going to be betting here without a better hand, and ultimately I do in fact fold my favorite hand. So kind of painful to do so, especially having the 7 of diamonds, but you guys can let me know down in the comments. I think that's a pretty decent fold. All right, moving right along, the $100 straddle is not out in this hand. There's an open to 200. I'm gonna come in for a 3-bet and I decide to get zesty here for 575. Not really sure why I didn't just toss out 6 black chips and be done with it, but 575, putting a little bit of personality on it. And of course, we're gonna get 4-bet here from Bruno. He wants to get some more chips from me. Obviously, he's trying to isolate me in position here. When I pick up pocket aces, Bruno, it's gonna be hard for you to get a lot of chips. I decide not to 5-bet. That would be very, very strong. I decide just to call. Out of position is not great, but we see ourselves to a decent flop, which comes queen 3 deuce rainbow. 3,500 in the middle, and the action goes check, bet, call. I decide to call here instead of going for a raise. Just putting in the 1K here seems like the right move, and we're off to the turn, which comes the jack of clubs. All in all, not the best card in the deck. Jacks will be in his range a good portion of the time. I don't really think queen jack suited or offsuit is going to be in his wheelhouse here when he comes in for a cold 4-bet, but you never know. This is a fun game here. Table 1 at the Aria, invite only, and even though I don't know Bruno, he was obviously invited for a reason. And surprisingly, the action goes check, check. The river card comes an inconsequential 5 of diamonds. It's 5,500 in the middle and a little bit left in my stack. So weird spot here where the action checked through on the turn. There's 5,500. I have 4,100, so obviously less than the size of the pot. I want to get value here versus hands like ace queen, king queen, queen 10, pocket kings, maybe even a ace jack type of hand that thinks I have ace king here and going for a bluff. So if I had any bluffs here, which side note to Bruno, I probably don't have too many, I'm gonna go all in. I want to do that with my bluffs, just like I would with my made hands like pocket aces. I don't think this is a punt here because even though he's going to show up with queens and jacks, occasionally maybe ace 4 of clubs, I also think I'm going to get called a lot by hands that I have beat. So when I rip it all in, we get snap called, which is not great news. And when he turns over the jiggities, pocket jacks here. I don't like this guy very much. I've played 2 hands here at table 1 at the Aria, both against Bruno, and it's safe to say that he has my number. Losing your stack is never great news, but more so when you're taking a shot in a pretty big game here, 25.50 with the $100 straddle. I was in for 7,000, obviously lost all of that in 2 hands, so pretty quickly. I rebuy for 6,000 more real American dollars, and now I pick up another premium pocket kings. Hopefully they don't do me as dirty as their counterpart pocket aces. It's a raise from Chino Ream. If you guys don't know who he is, well, just look him up on Hendon Mob. Safe to say he's a pretty good player. He makes it 300. I come in for a 3-bet to 1350, and he immediately shows me how good he is because after counting out my stack, he decides to fold his hand. So no action here with the Cowboys in Vegas, but no fear. King Queen of Hearts is here, and I make it $250 to go. There's a player to my left who puts in the call, and Chino Ream is tired of folding. Now he jams it in for $7,700. Why is he jamming it in for $7,700 over a $250 in a call? Well, we are playing the stand-up game to the tune of $300 a pop. So if you are the last person to win a hand at this table, you're gonna owe out a pretty penny. He makes it $7,700 to go, and Randy 3Coin, the legend, he needs no introduction, puts in the cold call for $7,700. Actions on me. I only have $38.75 left of my 6K rebuy, so of course it's going into the middle here with my knit button still in front of me. Nobody shows their cards. We're going off to a flop 3 ways, which comes pretty good for my hand, Queen Deuce Deuce. Of course, I have no idea if they have a hand like pocket kings or aces or even ace queen suited or unsuited, but flopping top pair is pretty great. The turn comes the 8 of diamonds followed by the 4 of diamonds. Randy turns over ace jack offsuit, had me smoked pre-flop until I flop that queen. I turn over my cards, and you can see Chino Ream mucks his cards, puts his face in his hands. That is a great sign for us. A 20K pot is coming over my way. Well, actually a little bit less because we only shoved for around $4,000, so still a 12K pot coming over our way. And all it took for us to finally win a hand in this session is for us to get our money in bad in a high leverage spot like the knit game. Okay, a raise to 250 now, a call from Chino, actions on me. I have ace jack of diamonds, a pretty great spot to come in for a squeeze, and I make it $1,200 to go. Both players put in the call. They want some of these Wolfgang dollars, and the flop comes pretty hard for them to get any more money from me. Ace king jack with 2 hearts. We have top and bottom pair. It's a $3,700 pot, and the actions on me. I fire out for $1,000, and only Chino Ream puts in the call. On the 7 of hearts turn, I have a decision between betting and checking. Having top and bottom pair is a good hand, but at the same time, it's very vulnerable. Chino could easily have a hand that contains the ace or queen of hearts. I don't want him to get there without me firing out a bet for $2,100, and he makes a pretty quick fold. For some reason, he wants to see the river, which comes a 7 of diamonds. And he screams in displeasure because he had a 7 in his hand. He would have river tripped, so great bet by me there on the turn. Seemed like a pretty standard spot to do it, but if I ever got tricky and found a check, well, this $7,800 pot is going over to Chino. All right, if you guys have been wondering where Randy 3Coin has been in this video, it's been a few hands since you last saw him. Well, here is the hand for you. There's a straddle to 100, a raise from Randy, and I 3-bet him to 900 with the beautiful ace king of diamonds. Player to my left puts in the call, and Randy 4-bets now to $2,300. All right, this could be a good candidate to put in the 5-bet, or we could smooth call and expect the player to my left to call as well. By 5-bet here, well, alarm bells are gonna go off for both opponents, but Randy 4-betting is already a very strong play. So are we trying to play for stacks here? I have 14,000 in my stack. Are we just gonna play a monster pot here? Well, let's see if we can hit the flop a little bit first. I don't want to just flip for $30,000 against Randy, who would easily put it in with a hand like pocket 5s. I'd much prefer to have a hand like 10s or jacks. That way I know I'm smoking him a good portion of the time when he does in fact have those pocket pairs. So in light of not wanting to flip for 30 grand, basically a brand new car in this economy, I decided to put in the call, and the player to my left, Sean, finds the call as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop, which comes pretty good for me to get my money in. 6-4-3 with 2 diamonds. We have the nut flush draw, and of course we have 2 overcards. Loving life here. There's 7,000 in the middle. And look over at Randy. He checks his cards once again. What does that mean? Well, I think he likes his hand, and especially so now that he fires out for 6,000 into the $7,000 pot. Of course, it's into 2 players, so I have to be cognizant that Randy probably has a decent hand at this point. I'm blocking aces and kings, so he could have a set, You could have queens, jacks, 10s. Well, I count out my stack and I only have around 12.5K. I say only because obviously that's a ton of money, but given the fact that it's only double Randy's bet, I think it's appropriate to get all the money in the middle here. If he has a hand like king queen or king 10, well, I don't think he can fold for an additional $6,000, so I jam it all in. Sean folds his cards in disgust and Randy snaps me off with the 3-coin hand, pocket threes, the crabs, bottom set, and we are in a flip situation here in a $32,000 pot, kind of what I was trying to avoid, but when I see that kind of flop with my exact hand, well, the money just has to go in. $32,000. Randy asked me how many times I want to run it. I've kind of made a point to myself in the next few months that I want to run things one time. It's way better for the vlog, less anticlimactic when we end up chopping a large pot. You guys want to see some pain or all the glory. The turn comes a red card, but it's the 8 of hearts, and the river card, another red card, but not the one we wanted to see, the deuce of hearts.
I don't believe it. You're still about 100,000 up.
Yeah. Of course, we don't have a straight. Ace, deuce, 3, 4 does not constitute one, so Randy is taking in a massive $32,000 pot, and look how excited he is. He's so good for poker, and even though I'm losing a massive pot, I know I'm gonna have my chances to get it back. Even though I love Randy, it still hurts to be down $13,000 in this 25-50 game. I dig back into my bag, and I only have 15,000 more. Yes, I brought a ton of money to this game. I was hoping to not have to put it onto the table and use it, but I pick up 7 deuce of hearts here. There's a straddle and a raise, and of course I'm coming in for a 3-bet to $900. There's a call and a 4-bet, and of course I have to fold 7 deuce of hearts, but I just put this in here to show you guys that even though I'm stuck $13,000 in this game, I'm still getting after it with these mediocre hands. Of course, the 7 deuce game was on, and I love that, so I'm never going to be folding. King 5 of clubs seems like a slight upgrade. I make it $300 to go, and immediately we get 3-bet to 900. And when Chino Reem calls the 900 from across the table, I decide to put in the additional 600 as well.
13-5. Sean, you don't have a button? Don't 4 people have a button?
Go through all this just to fold, man.
Alright, fine, dude. I was gonna fold, but then you just talked me into making a bad call. God damn it.
With nearly 2,900 in the middle, a 10-3 deuce rainbow board is what we're going to be playing with here. The action checks over to Sean, who checks behind, bringing in the queen of clubs on the turn, a pretty interesting card. Of course, I pick up the king high flush draw, so when the action checks over to Sean once again and he fires out for $1,500 and Chino folds his cards, I think I have 2 options here. I could either call and try to realize my equity, or I could check raise here and try to put all of his pocket pairs, ace 10, jack 10 type of hands in a tough spot. I think in the long run, check raising here makes the most amount of sense because I don't have a made hand. If I have a flush draw plus a pair, I think calling makes more sense because if the action goes check check on the river on a brick, we could win at showdown. So of course I choose the worst of the 2 options and just put in the call, but we might have got bailed out on the king of diamonds river. It's not a club like we wanted to see, but I also forgot that I could spike a top pair on the river. There's 5,800 in the middle, and now in case Sean has a queen or a 10, I want to bet out small here and try to get value. I think there's a high chance he checks behind here when an overcard comes on the river. So I announce 1555. But because we're playing 25-50, it's only going to be 15-50. And before I could even put my chips in the middle, Sean snap calls me. I turn over the king 5 and he looks disgusted. How did I get there? Well, Sean, I had the king high flush draw. And finally, we are getting some momentum. I was stuck $13,000, but this is some much needed reinforcement. My stack is now up to 19,000. All right, funny hand developing here. I make it $300 and Sean and Bruno both put in the call. The flop comes king, king, jack, bang. We flop 3 of a kind, and I bet out small here for $200. The logic is I have trips, so I want to get some value, but I don't really think players have that much going on this board. I have the 10 of clubs in my hand, so I block hands like queen 10. There are some flush draws available, but other than that, I'm either way ahead or way behind versus a king or king jack, of course. Only Bruno puts in the call, and the turn comes the 3 of clubs. I bet out small again here, trying to just get a little bit of value versus hands like pocket 9s, pocket 8s, jack 10, queen jack, jack, and Bruno calls once again. When the river card comes a board pairing 3 of diamonds and now have a full house, kings full of 3s, and I decide to get tricky and check. If he has a flush, he might go for a small bet here and I could check raise him. If he has a jack, well, he's probably not calling a bet anyways, so I might as well give him some rope and try to bet it himself. And Bruno fires out here for around 2/3 the size of the pot for $1,100. Having a full house, I'm only losing to king jack and pocket 3s. The last bet was $1,100 and I don't think Bruno is going to call much more than that. In fact, I don't really think he's going to call this raise too often in general, so I go super small and Sashimi calls it perfectly. It's a min raise to $2,200. Bruno looks disgusted. A min raise is usually never a bluff. It's such a good price though. He only has to call $1,100 to win like $6,500. So he only has to be good here a small portion of the time. He probably has a jack if he's thinking about it this much. And ultimately he decides the price is right. He's Bob Barker, puts in the call. I turn over the king 10 and I make the maximum here when he folds his cards face down. So back-to-back nice size pots coming over my way. I now have 22,000 in my stack. Remember, I'm in for 28,000, so I'm only stuck 6K at this point. And I make it $300 to go with 8-9 of diamonds and immediately get 3-bet by a player to my left, Sean. He makes it 1K to go. Action's back over to me. I'm on a hot streak here. I'm trying to go 3 for 3. So I put in the call and we flop ourselves Jin on a 9-9-6 board. Bang, we flop trips once again. Back-to-back hands. Let's go. This one's a little bit more disguised. I check it over to Sean and he fires out for $1,000. I'm hoping and praying he has a hand like 10s, jacks, queens, kings, even aces would be a miracle here. This is a session saving hand if somehow we can get more money in the middle. I don't want to set off any alarm bells. I'm just going to call here like I would with hands like pocket 7s, pocket 5s. So I find the call here. The pot has ballooned up to 4,300 and the queen of hearts peels off on the turn. It's a pretty good card because now hands like king, queen, ace, queen have caught up here and can confidently go for a value bet. So sure enough, Sean fires out for $3,500 utilizing some of those purple $500 chips and of course that beautiful banana colored 1K chip. $3,500 in the middle, and at this point I'm pretty sure this pot is mine. So the decision is here. I have a lot of money behind. I have Sean covered and I want to get more money in the middle. If I just call here, the river could be a scare card. I check it over to Sean and he checks behind. We definitely don't want to see that, so I decided to check raise him small here to 7,500. It's just a hair over a min click to 7,000. What this allows him to do is probably not fold. He's either going to call here or shove his entire stack in the middle. If he has top pair, I think it's pretty hard for him to get away. So he does in fact jam it all in for around $15,000, and of course I snap him off here with 3 of a kind. When the cards hit their backs, we see that Sean has ace queen offsuit, so in pretty rough shape here with 2 pair queens and 9s. He's gonna have to hit a miracle card on the river in order to take this one away from me. There's $35,000 in the middle, and the river comes a brick. It's the ace of hearts. He improves to a better 2 pair, but $35,000 coming over my way. What a dream situation there, calling a 3-bet and getting that exact flop, and then that exact turn to get all the money in the middle. A dream situation. $35,000 coming over my way. Just a few videos ago, this would have been the biggest pot of my life, but of course, if you haven't seen the last video I posted, I played an $82,000 pot versus Rampage Poker. You guys are going to want to check that one out. Still, a $35,000 pot is massive, especially when we were stuck $13,000. We're now up a little bit of money on the session, so of course, we're up $6,000 now when we pick up 7 deuce of clubs. You saw earlier that I was going for it with 7 deuce suited when I was stuck money, so of course we have to go for it when we're up money. There's a raise and a 3-bet in front of us, so kind of an interesting situation here. Scary to say the least. I need to come in for a 4-bet, but I don't need to go super large because my 4-betting range is pretty much a lot of premiums and then of course 7 deuce. So when I make it small here, both the raiser and the 3-better fold to basically just a hair over a min raise, and that means we are taking down all of that money plus $300 per person.
I'll take it. I'll take it. take it.
But in between that hand and this hand, a bunch of nonsense happened. Just a bunch of raising, 3-betting, calling bets, calling some flop stuff. Nothing super interesting, but we've bled a few $1,000s. So we find ourselves here with 27K in our stack, and I have ace king offsuit. I make it $300 to go, and we're gonna get 2 customers here until the player on my right puts in the call as well. So 4 ways to the flop here on an ace queen queen board, and I'm either way ahead or way behind. With $1,300 in the middle, I decide to check. The action checks through, bringing in the 4 of spades on the turn. Jimmy across the table, who lives out in Colombia, he puts in a bet of $700. The player to my right calls, and of course I have to call here with 2 pair. Having the king of diamonds is a great kicker. The river card now comes the king of spades, so I didn't really need that card because now it brings in the backdoor spade flush. Really would have preferred to not see a spade on the river, and the action checks over to Jimmy once again. Is this a bluff? Is this a value bet? He fires out for $1,800, and the player to my right folds his cards. I have to think about it here because of course I have 2 pair. Is he really value betting a hand that I have beat? So ultimately I make a very disciplined fold here. It's hard to do so when you have a premium hand, but I was going 4 ways. The likelihood of Jimmy having a queen here is pretty high. I fold my cards and he folds his. We don't get to see until he realizes I'm filming a vlog and graciously turns over the queen of hearts. So you guys cannot roast me down in the comments for folding a very good hand. Okay, next hand here, ace-5 of hearts is a raise and a call over to me. I think this is a great spot to come in for a 3-bet. I make it $750 to go. Both players are going to put in the call, and the flop comes king 5-3 rainbow. When the action checks to me, I go pretty small here for $600. I'm going to have a lot of suited kings in my range, and I'd want to go small here and just target a lot of his pocket pairs. Maybe if he had a hand like ace-5, would call a bet for sure. Both players put in the call, and the turn comes the 4 of diamonds. When the action checks over to me for a second time, there's of course 3 players in the hand. I think I can now get hands to fold like pocket 7s, 8s, 9s. I'm only really going to get called by those straights, maybe some random sets or 2 pair like 5-4 suited, and of course a king. So I think there's merit in going for a bet here. Only Malcolm puts in the call. He's traveled all the way from down under Australia to play in this exact game. He's probably a pretty good player. He calls me here on the turn, and the pot has ballooned up to $8,400. The river now comes a 7 of clubs, and that really shouldn't change too much. He checks it over to me. I think the bluff is up here. I have some showdown value. I beat some of those ace-high hands, so I'm really glad to know that I didn't go for a bet there, because he turns over 6-7 of diamonds, floats me on the flop there with a gutter, no backdoor diamond draw, banks it on the turn, just calls instead of check raising, and then check on the river, saves me some money. $8,400 going over Malcolm's way. Not great to end the session here with an L, but I could have lost another $5,000 if I got greedy there and tried to pick up that last pot. So how do we do in this massive session? Well, it was 25, 50, 100. We got in for 7,000, rebought for 6,000, rebought for 15,000. So all in all, in for 28,000. End up getting out for 21,740 after a few bad hands there to end the night. A net loss of 62.60 and a bunch of hours of play. Of course, I still had a bunch of fun playing those last few hands against some pretty good opponents. If you guys liked this video and you haven't seen my $82,000 pot versus Rampage, the last video I posted, well, that's up on your screen right now along with another banger of a video. Good luck on the felt, you guys. I'll catch you very soon in another video. Peace.